I'm Tony Grady, and I'm running to be your next U.S. Senator. And will you help me fire Chuck Schumer? Will you help me do that? You definitely need to do that. But the step to do that is that we have to beat Jackie Rosen. And I'm going to make the case as to how I can beat Jackie Rosen. So in order to know something about Tony Grady, you have to know a little bit about my background. So I want to defend the American dream. And the American dream is based on American values. My parents were born in the Jim Crow South and grew up there. They ended up going to college, and my dad was a vocational education professor. After several years of teaching in different colleges, he got tapped to go into foreign service. I had the opportunity to live in Lagos, Nigeria as a little boy, and then later on I graduated from high school in Bangkok, Thailand. So I saw communism, I saw socialism up front and personal. When I was that little boy in Africa, I lived through a coup. And of course, all this stuff wouldn't really make sense to me until later. So I became very patriotic, and I went to the United States Air Force Academy. And I became a pilot, and I became a test pilot. I commanded the B-2 stealth bomber test squadron. Now, people have told me I have to share a little bit about what test pilots do because it goes over, most people's heads. But you guys enjoy flying in commercial airlines now, right? Let me restate that. Many of you like the opportunity to be able to travel across the United States in something other than a covered wagon. How about that? Well, a lot of things that happened in aviation came at the cost of many lives. And out at Edwards Air Force Base is where we cut our teeth on doing the things that we needed to do in aerodynamics so that people can fly in commercial aviation now. I could spend the rest of the time talking to you about why wings are swept and they're not straight anymore and different things like that. But in the 50s, there were deaths constantly. So test piloting is a dangerous business. What we do is we go out and fly something that no one has ever done before. And I had the privilege of doing that in the B-2. I got to open the envelope and terrain following radar, night terrain following radar. So I want you to understand that we're talking about something with a wingspan that's over 100 feet, and it's not that long. But we're talking about 200 to 400 feet above the ground at night where you can't see anything. Okay, I could talk to you why I was chosen to do that because I did it before in FB-111s and I was an expert on that. But I got to be the first human being to do that and open the envelope. So it was very dangerous. It was also a very expensive program, $24 billion. We had 113 personnel. Now there were many people who commanded the squadron, but I had the privilege of commanding the squadron at the tail end of the program where we had the most intensive flying. And so it was safe and successful and nobody died. It will be one of the most successful test programs of all time. So I had the privilege of representing you, the taxpayers, and making sure that we had a great airplane. So you heard much about the B-2? You kind of know what it is, but is it in the news all the time? No, because it works. If it didn't, it would be in the news. So anyway, so I kind of wanted to hinge on that because people say, well, you say you're a test pilot, nobody knows what that is. Well, now you know. So not only did I work that program, I also worked in the Pentagon and I was the bomber expert and worked on the military portion of the president's budget. So the good news on that is I understand the appropriations process. The bad news on that is that I understand the appropriations process because it really doesn't work. So I have experience with that, and I think that's critical to someone being a United States Senator, to understand, why we have cost overruns, how you can understand how those budgets are made. So after 20 years in the Air Force, Force, I went to work for FedEx. But before I talk about FedEx, I want to tell you that now that I have your attention, what the most important thing is that you need to know about me. So this is the most important, now that everybody's awake. I've been married to the same woman for 40 years. And she's sitting back there at the desk, that's Donna. And we have 4 children. So, how many people here are parents? Okay, parents. Tell me, sir, do children listen? No, children don't listen. Well, mine don't listen either. I went to the Air Force Academy, and the oldest went to Annapolis. And worse than that, the baby went to West Point. Can you imagine? And then in the middle, we have one that was a molecular biologist and one that's been running her own personal training business. The reason I tell you that this is important is not doting on my kids, which I can do. But my children are successful. We need to elect leaders that want all American children to be successful. That's who I am. That's the most important thing we need to know about. So now I'll put you back to sleep. After the Air Force, I flew for FedEx for 20 years. During that time period, I ran my own biotech company, and I found out what happens when you put your capital at risk and when you have your head handed to you. I understand about government regulations. So I've been experienced in that. So people ask, well, how'd you wind up here in Nevada? Well, I wound up here because after we got our kids out of the house, we were living in Dayton, Ohio, so we decided it was time to change the locks and move. So we're in the process of doing that, and at FedEx, the word got out that I was going to go to San Antonio, Texas, because we have a brother-in-law that lives down there, and actually a couple brother-in-laws, but one near San Antonio that we were going to kind of move next to. And then here he comes on one day in the FedEx ops room, and here he comes. Cowboy with his hat, mustache, and legs up to here. It's Walt Reep, my buddy, who was a Marine and Navy pilot, who flew with me at FedEx, and he's a rancher at Fallon. And he comes bounding across the ops room and he says, what's this nonsense I hear about you moving to Texas? And I go, what do you mean nonsense? He says, look, you need to look at Nevada. Why don't you take a look at Reno? I said, Reno? I said, what part of Canada is that in? He goes, yeah, you're challenged. You're geographically challenged. So Walt convinced me to take a look at Reno, and we house hunted in Texas, and we house hunted in Reno 3 years. We liked the high desert. We liked the mountains. It was wonderful. But what sealed the deal was the people. We've been in the Air Force. We've moved around a lot. We've seen a lot of neighborhoods. We've seen a lot of people. We liked Nevada. So we moved here. So I'm here in Nevada, minding my own business. And since I'm in Reno, you need to go to the Reno air races, right? Because they're world famous. So I go to the Reno air races, and I'm walking around, and I look at this guy, and I go, I know you. He goes, I know you. Comes to find out that he's one of my classmates from the Air Force Academy, and he's racing jets. So he takes me over to the jet tent where all the other jet racers are. And then I run into a guy by the name of Rick Vandam. Rick goes, yeah, well, I was an Academy grad, but do you know my brother, Dave Vandam, who graduated in '77? And I go, yeah, I know Dave. He was in my squadron. I walked into an instant family. So Reno was home. So I became aware of Nevada 42 years ago when I deployed in what we call Red Flag, which is a mock air war exercise that the Air Force tries to cycle all of its units through so that pilots get some indication of what combat will be like. So I always say that back then, when I was younger, I flew over Nevada at 600 miles an hour. Now I walk the trails at 2 miles an hour. So Nevada's been home. I ended up being the air boss for the air racers. I worked for the air racers 4 years. I was the air boss for 2. Good cop, bad cop. During that time period, safe, successful. Nobody died. And happy about that. So I did that with the air races, and it was through the air races that I found out about business here, and I found out that we want to attract high-tech businesses, and then I realized that our education system was not producing the future folks that we needed, the workforce for those high-tech jobs. That's what got me into politics. And when I talked to folks who knew my background, they encouraged me to run for lieutenant governor, because the lieutenant governor is the point man in Nevada for business, and that's why I ran for lieutenant governor. Wanted to tell you all that because of this. For those of you who don't know or can't remember, I won 13 of the 17 counties when I ran for lieutenant governor. So that was my first stint in running for office. And oh, by the way, I won Washoe. Okay, I lost to Stavros, who's a good guy. I like meeting him, Stavros Anthony. 5.8% was what I lost by. 7,000 votes. So, when I looked at my skill set, I go, Nevadans have indicated that they want my leadership. When I looked at the skill set that I have, I realized that I needed to run for the United States Senate. Need to run for the United States Senate because the Democrats are trying to destroy the American dream. I'm successful because of the American values my parents raised me with. We have leaders, our president, rubber stamped by our current junior senator, Jackie Rosen, that do not believe in American values. Well, I believe in American values. So I have been tried, I have been tested. You can trust me to do what I say I'm going to do. I have that proven track record. When you elect me to be your senator, I will focus on securing the border, because without a border, we don't have a country. I will focus on drill, baby, drill. And one other important thing, it's really also that we need to pump more and have a refinery. We haven't built refineries in years. And so the problem is gas prices go up because of the choke point. When we're changing over between winter and summer, strains of gasoline that you put in. So we need to look at building a refinery. But the key to that is we need to get our energy back to the place where we are energy independent. And then the third thing is we need to get the United States back to its proper place in the world stage, because we need to lead instead of react. Because when the United States leads, there's more peace in the world. When President Trump was president, we had those three things. So we need to elect him again. And I know there's some people that may not be a fan, but that's fine. I just want to let everybody know where I stand. I don't change my position for any audience. But in my opinion, and not my opinion, this is fact, when President Trump was president, unemployment was the lowest in my lifetime, especially minority unemployment. We were energy independent, and nobody in the world was messing with us. So those were the things that were happening at that time. President Trump was the only president that fulfilled the U.S. promise of moving the embassy, U.S. embassy in Israel to Jerusalem out of Tel Aviv. We had been promising it for years. So, in my opinion, President Trump delivers. I also know that Americans have a right to expect a certain decorum out of their president. In my case, I'm more concerned about performance. And that's where I stand. So if anybody asks me what's my position on Trump, now you know. So, why do I think that I can deliver as your U.S. Senator? Again, because I've been tried and tested, so you can trust me. But also, I'm the only Republican candidate running in this race that can talk about foreign policy and the diplomatic instrument of power, military strategy and the military instrument of power, economic policy and the economic instrument of power. I can talk about all of those topics. There is no other candidate running that has experience and is competent to talk about all of those topics at any time. So that's important. Also what's important is that the largest portion of our directorate, or I should say our voting base in Nevada, the largest voting group, are independents. It's 44%. So they're the largest sector. I am the only candidate that will be able to appeal to a wide range of voters. And if you are going to unseat an incumbent, you have to have a compelling value proposition to convince them to vote other than the incumbent. And today I stand here to tell you that that's who I am. I am Tony Grady, and I am running to be your next United States Senator. We will fire Chuck Schumer by defeating Jackie Rose. Thank you. And so for all of you who may not have been there, you can go to my website, gradyfornevada.com, and that's Grady, F-O-R, Nevada.com. And you can see what the campaign is about. You can learn more about me. There's about 12 or 13 news interviews where I've been on TV. They're all up there on the site. You can see how I answer questions. You can see if I think in a way that you would like me to think. So that's very important. So that's the part of me being the candidate, and I hope that I can get you all to do 3 things for me. I need you to pray for me. I need you to vote for me, because I need to earn that. And then I need you to send me all your gold and silver. No firstborn children. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, Todd's got some things here that you need to look at. I'm just going to give you a little second to kind of look at that, because today's concluding topic is going to be on faith. And as Todd mentioned, my book is coming out this week. We'll make sure that we announce it, and everybody, I've been working on this thing. If you've never, any authors in here? Are there any authors? There's one. So you know how hard it is to get. It's almost impossible. But they promised me it was going to be out this week. And for all of you that haven't been able to do it or weren't aware of it, the cover for the book is on the back there, so you can read what's on the cover. It's on the easel. But I have the chapter on faith written out. And you can see what it is about faith. But keep this in mind. So understand that when our country was founded, we had the pilgrims who came. And they came because they sought religious freedom. So we have an amendment that says that the government shall not make any laws pertaining to religion or the free exercise thereof. That's an important American value. That's a guarantee. So when we think about faith, and we think about it being an American value, from the higher point, let's remember that our founders acknowledged that there is a God, and God created families, and He also created government, and He created the church. And those institutions operate in certain ways to make our society what it is. And the founders enshrined that in the First Amendment. But we're looking at here with these problems. How come we have Twitter? How come we have folks in our government that aren't standing up for the First Amendment? We just got out of COVID. How many churches were shut down? Anybody here from a church that was shut down? That's not the responsibility of government. The First Amendment says the free exercise thereof. So our Constitution is important because it's the bedrock on what we stand on, and faith is something integral to our country. Now, because we're a pluralistic society, and also because we can't have a government establish religion, it's fine when people don't believe in God, because we have a pluralistic society. I don't think it's fine for them personally, but that's their right. But it is not the right of secular humanists to dictate how people who believe in God are to operate. That's not their right. So we need leaders in government that are going to protect our First Amendment rights and all the rest of the rights. Protect those who want to worship. Protect our faith. And so one of the things that John Adams said, our second president, is that the Constitution was developed for a religious and moral people. It is totally, totally unsuited for anyone else. And if you get my chapter on faith, that's right there at the top, because it's important. So faith is strong. Faith is something that my parents taught me. Faith are those things that have gotten me through life. Faith is why I ended up marrying my wife. Faith is what I taught my children. Faith is an American value that shall not be infringed on. It will be upheld. And as your U.S. Senator, I will do that. So, talking about COVID, and talking about how we had a government that totally went against that, we had people being vilified for not wanting to take the vaccine, which I should say is a shot, because it's not really a vaccine. But anyway, one of them happened to be my youngest son. Captain in the Army. He had been given command of a I always get this wrong. I have to have my ground people tell me. It's multi-role bridging unit. And for the rest of you, those are the guys that make sure that the personnel in the tanks can get across rivers, ravines, and all those things that stop armies. So his unit was a very storied unit from World War II that was stood up out of mothballs. So he had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to stand this unit up. And he was doing a great job. And they came to him and they said, "We want you to take this COVID shot." And he said, "I won't do it." And the Army said, "And we want you to order your soldiers to do it too." And he said, "I would not." So he did not order his soldiers, nor would he take the shot. And for 2 years, they threatened to throw him out of the Army. 2 straight years, constantly. "Well, you're going to be gone by July. Well, you're going to be gone by August." Well, they were bluffing, because the reality is you can't throw an officer out of the military without a board. You have to have a judicial board because of the nature of how our country's put together. And the powers that be didn't want a judicial board, because then it would have come out that the military was trying to force an emergency use authorization shot on people, and you can't order someone to do that. And so I'm really proud of my son, because he stood his ground, and that's what we need. We need people like my son to be serving our country. Now, I would like to take all the credit for him doing that. But the reality is my wife, okay? Because any parent here ever wanted to terminate a child? So, I kind of had that relationship with one of my children. But every time I wanted to terminate the child, my 5'2" wife grew to about 6'7", got very big muscles, and got in the way and said, "You're not hurting my prodigy." So anyway, so the reality is we're very proud. But that's what we're here about today. We're here about American values, and we're here about the things that we hold dear, and we need to stand up and not allow those who would try to deny that to do it. That's why we have to close the border. We've had problems with an influx of too many people into our country at one time in the past. And what we did is we shut everything down, so that those who came into the country could incorporate, cleave to, understand, and believe in American values. Well, with an open border, with people coming in illegally, they don't care about American values. But why are they coming here? They're coming here because we have a country that is prospering based on the rule of law. All of the actions by the progressives that are in power right now are trying to destroy the fabric of our country. So I'm here to defend the American dream because I want better for my children and for your children. I want better for my grandchildren and for your grandchildren. And we need to take our stand now, because if we don't defend the American dream now in this election, the United States will look totally different 5 years from now. So I'm Tony Grady, and I'm here to be your next United States Senator. Today we talked about faith, we talked a little bit about me, and now it's time for you to ask me questions. Thank you for coming today. Thank you.